It has been an amazing ride for the man who was born in Antigonish and raised in very rural Whiteside, Richmond County on Cape Breton Island. As rural schools had no gymnasiums, no physical education programs, and no form of coaching at any level, Carroll's first involvement in organized sport was in football at St. Francis Xavier University. He was a member of the X team under Don Loney that won the first Vanier Cup in 1966 for national inter-university supremacy. He's also in this Sport Hall of Fame as a member of that team. Carroll knew why he was a student athlete at university. He earned an arts degree while playing football for 2 years and rugby for 2 years. Former president of the St. FX alumni, Bill Kiley, who wrote the piece on Carroll in the magazine you have tonight, has been involved with X teams for more than 5 decades. He recalls a story that illustrates the physical strength of Carroll Morgan. This is in quotes now. During heavy rains, the team would not practice outdoors but use the old basketball gym, he recalls. Carroll, a lineman, and guard Bernie McLean, also a big kid from Cape Breton, were both oxen. They would arm wrestle and teammates would gather around to watch, sometimes for half an hour or more. Carroll had no training for football when he came to X, but he sure had that brute strength. The brute strength plus an affinity to listen and to absorb what he was taught combined to foster Morgan's fine amateur boxing career. He discovered the sport through his ex-roommate, Rocky McDougall, another member of this Hall of Fame, and a fine professional boxer who became an educator after his ring days were over. Carroll and Rocky would spar, Carroll the heavyweight, Rocky the featherweight. And it wasn't fair. Rocky would handle the bigger guy with ease. Carroll would miss a punch and swat Rocky with a backhand or hit him on the top of the head. And Rocky knew then that Carroll needed further training. By the time Carroll came to Halifax to earn an education degree at St. Mary's University, he was bitten by the boxing bug. Taylor Gordon, then head coach at Citadel Boxing Club and the Builder inductee in the Hall, says Carroll was very disciplined. He was asked about Carroll's strengths.
Well, his hitting power and his ability to be able to take a blow and then dish out a return blow, that was a big factor. I mean, you couldn't intimidate Carroll. And even if you hit him, it didn't slow him down. He was very determined, and he could, slip the punch, even with injuries. He fought many times when he had serious hand injuries from hitting other people, but he still showed the determination to win.
And he progressed quickly. By 1970, he was a provincial heavyweight amateur champion. At the 1971 Canada Winter Games, he won bronze. He won in a Canada versus USA Challenge Series and won 2 of 3 bouts on a Scandinavian tour. In 1972, he won the provincial, Atlantic, Eastern Canadian, and national heavyweight championships and earned a spot on the Canadian Olympic team. He finished 4th in his class at Munich. Rick Anderson, a former Canadian amateur and professional champion, recalls as a young boxer seeing Carroll at the gym.
And seeing Carroll Morgan, who was a big man, over 200 pounds, and knowing that he made the Olympics and was a representative of the Canadian Olympic boxing team was just like, wow, how big that was. And he was the catalyst. Actually, he was the spark that just ignited all the young fighters around the gym, and particularly me at that time, because I was like, wow, this is amazing. You know, I watched the Olympics that year, and I was so excited about it. And then here's a guy right in our hometown, in our gym, and who was competed there and done so well. I said to myself, I got to make that happen. I got to make that happen for myself.
Now his size, his great size, may have been his only drawback. Taylor Gordon referred to that massive size actually as a bit of a weakness.
Yes, and it was the lack of having competitors to work with him and sparring partners and that to work with him. If we would have had Trevor Berbick here a few years earlier, when Trevor came in 1975, Carroll was at that point where he was looking at other ways to carry on his life. But if we'd had opponents like that in the late 60s and early 70s, it would have been a big help to Carroll.
Now, Rick Anderson, who you saw moments ago, was asked the question, did you ever spar with Carroll Morgan? Here's the answer.
I spar with Carroll Morgan. Of course, he would have turned me into did meet, but he was a great guy, and he was a lot bigger than I, and thank God we never ever hooked up.
Carroll continued to win through 1973, 4, and 5, all in national and international competitions. He won several bouts by walkover where opponents either failed to show up or even failed to register.
You could see sometimes he was hurt by that nobody wanted to fight him. There wasn't enough competition for him. It frustrated him. You could see the frustration, and sometimes what had happened over the years, Carroll, because I think that he never had enough competition in front of him, it took away from his confidence.
Carroll made the Canadian Commonwealth Games team in 1974 and lost a split decision to the eventual gold medalist. In 1978, he tore a muscle while training for the Commonwealth Games and was on the shelf for 6 years until 1984 when he again won a provincial title. During those later years, he held a full-time teaching job in Halifax that he eventually left to work for the Seafarers Union. Taylor Gordon now speaking on the effects that boxing had on Carroll Morgan.
It gave him the realization that even if you come from a small town, that you can still achieve your goal if you work at it and follow the right pattern and get your life in order.